pop4conservation.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that's where you want to go to support Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation fundraising efforts. Pop4conservation.com is where you can go to be a big winner. 80 winners, over $200,000 in prizes, vehicles, firearms, hunting and fishing packages. Again, 80 winners, over $200K in prizes. Pop4conservation.com, protecting our pursuits. Pop4conservation.com. Go there today to enter. Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Welcome, everybody, to this feature episode of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. For this episode, we're welcoming in Gregg Ritz, Thompson Center Arms. Really great opportunity to catch up with Gregg. I've known him for quite a many years. Good friend of the sporting community. A man who, as you'll find out, has great motivations, as a mission with the Rebirth at Thompson Center that goes beyond firearms. Anyway, that storytelling, that part of the conversation to come as you continue to listen through. Timely episode with a timely message as we approach quickly Election Day 2024, the impact of sportsmen and women, and why your vote matters. We're going to cover all that and more. Welcoming in Gregg Ritz. Stand by. All right, everybody. Welcome into another feature edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. I'm on location, actually not too far away from CSF Northeast headquarters. I am here in Stratham, New Hampshire, with longtime friend Gregg Ritz. Many of you know him as the Huntmaster. I mean, the accolades are deep, the resume is long, but we're here to talk Thompson Center, the Rebirth, and muzzleloading, a particular favorite of mine. Thanks for having us into your home.
No, glad to have you here. And you're right. We go back, our relationship, many, many, many years. And it's been fun to follow your career. But the one thing that has stayed consistent is your passion for turkeys. Yes. So I'm sure driving over here today, you were looking in all the fields looking for a full turkey to chase.
That's accurate as all get out. And I'm grateful none of the fine law enforcement officers of the Seacoast were there to see that, because I might have crossed a double yellow or two.
So everybody now knows if I kill a turkey, it's because Fred did yell.
Yeah. Man, it's good to see you. I'm excited. It's been forgive me. It was May this announcement came out.
Yeah, April 12th was the official transition date from Smith & Wesson to the new Thompson Center Arms.
And I mean, it's no secret you've been doing, I think, everybody's podcast under the sun. So which is why I'm grateful to get on your schedule and the story's been told. But we're going to kind of take a different turn here on the story. We're going to do the history, we're going to do the story, but for CSF standpoint, there is new technology out there, and with new technology comes conversations. Is this stuff ethical? Is it in the same spirit? And what I'm getting to is the Firestick technology, working with federal. You've used it in the past. I suspect we're going to have a Thompson Center variant that will, I know that's going to happen. You and I have talked about that, and we're okay to talk about that here. But there are states where that technology is not legal yet. And for our part, we have a direct line to those state legislative bodies, to our co-chairs and our legislative sportsmen's caucuses, where we can start having those conversations in those states where it's not legal, or they're going through a review process, and proactively get that legislation advanced so that technology can be used. And certainly for me, that's exciting work. Now, again, we'll cover this here in a minute, but in most of the Northeast, it's already good to go. So I really have my work not ahead of me, some of the states in New England, but at any rate, it's exciting to see the brand get a heartbeat again. And just, for the audience sake here that hasn't tuned into the other podcast, take us through the whole process. Like, where did it start, and how are we getting where we're at today?
Well, you bring up an interesting point, Fred, and that is what really fuels the industry are the seasons, right? And it's the work at the legislative level. So if you go, way back to when, obviously, Thompson Center started with the Contender handgun, released in 1967. But it was released initially, it was a hunting handgun, and it was for target shooting. Silhouette shooting was becoming big back then. And 1970s when the Hawk and muzzleloader came out. But if you go back to 1970, how many deer were there across the country? Very few, right? Very few deer. I'm talking even in the Midwest, Iowa, Illinois, Kansas, Ohio, right now, the heart belt of where these whitetails are, Texas, right? Which has the number one state for deer population. You didn't have the deer density back then, so we didn't have all of these various hunting seasons, meaning you didn't have an archery season, a gun season, a muzzleloader season. So as the whitetail population started to grow and we learned how to manage and take advantage of the resource, Thompson Center was at the forefront, working at the state level, saying, let's create an opportunity, right, for muzzleloader hunters, which creates an economic opportunity for the state, right, because they get some additional revenue from tags. And then obviously all the other things that come, the sales tax on purchasing of the goods and services, the travel, the hotels, the gas, so on and so forth. So all of that really started to explode in the 80s because the whitetail exploded, the seasons exploded, and now virtually every state has a muzzleloading opportunity. It varies, right? Pennsylvania says you want to shoot a buck, you're going to use flintlock.
Yep.
Right? Around here, Firestick is legal, put a scope on it. And in New Hampshire, you can hunt before the gun season.
Which is nice
because you kind of have this, you start with archery. Then as the season progresses, you add a few more people with muzzleloader. And then you add, obviously, in the peak, all the gun hunters. Then it comes back down and archery finishes at the end of the year. So people have to realize we got to continue to fight for that every day. That's not a God-given right? It's not something that's written in the Constitution that says you will forever be allowed to muzzleloader hunt in the state of New Hampshire, right? So what you guys do, CSF, and what other people do across the country every day, fight for those opportunities. And you brought Firestick, obviously, because that's a evolution in the technology that allows people to get into the sport easier and safer and what have you. But I put all that into the context of this didn't exist. Those seasons didn't exist before Thompson Center. Thompson Center, and obviously along the way, CVA and traditions helped support. But there was one person at the point of that spear, and it's Thompson Center. And I think when Smith & Wesson acquired the business in 2007, and especially when it got moved to Springfield in 2010, the promotion, the excitement around muzzleloading or single shot hunting or interchangeable firearms, it didn't get the attention, that the bolt action and some other platforms did. Of course, the marketplace was changing. Crossbows were becoming more popular. Straight wall cartridges came in later. So we go through these trends in the marketplace. So Smith & Wesson was kind of catching it at the apex of the popularity. And then all these other competing interests started to, capture the mind of the hunter. And think of just turkey hunting, right? What's changed in turkey hunting?
So much.
We're hunting with a 410 now and smashing birds at 30 yards, right? With the evolution of TSS and the technology, guns and chokes and all that. So, Smith & Wesson, they, obviously they continue to build good products, but they didn't interact at the state level that TC used to. And so a lot of those opportunities started to shift. And then the whole straight wall cartridge movement came in. And so I think it was good, right? Because states that, here in the Seacoast, you have to use a slug gun.
Right.
So there's no doubt a straight wall cartridge is more accurate than a slug gun. Is it more lethal? No, not at all. But is it more accurate easier to operate, easier to sight in, less recoil, 100%, right? But then there's other states like Mississippi that said, wow, we'll just make straight was legal during muzzleloading season. Okay, there's blurring the line of what's traditional, right? You're not pouring the powder down the barrel, right? You're not pushing a bullet down the barrel. And obviously, you could start using repeaters. So things have definitely changed in the marketplace, but the one thing's for sure, I mean, the deer herds are as healthy as they've ever been. Turkey populations are as good as, I want to say as good as they've ever been, but there's certainly, everybody has those opportunities. And then all the other things, look at the predator hunting going on today. That's become huge. Hog hunting now. So there's a lot of other areas in game species that people are traveling to hunt today.
Yeah. I think of black bear specifically here in the Northeast, and just this year, New Hampshire Fish and Game offered a second black bear tag in the White Mountain regions of our state because of overpopulation. I mean, we had so many hiker bear interactions on some very popular trails in that national forest this summer that just highlights the need for it. Conversely, on watching social anecdotally, I've seen a whole bunch of black bear in the last 2 years hitting the ground in a great way, and it's people are finding a new opportunity. There's more access. I can remember years ago watching you on TV, and it was like such a novelty to think about hunting bear. And they're here. They're very healthy.
Well, and it's good, and it's because of good habitat management, good game management create opportunities. Right. And that's the reason why we have more whitetails and more bears and turkeys, because you have to manage the habitat. Where conversely, we don't have as many pheasants as we used to have. We don't have as many quail as we used to have. Because why? We're taking out fence rows, the push for more, production, especially in the Midwest, meaning agriculture, corn and beans and 40-foot headers on combines now. So easier to turn around. So we have to be very cautious on how we manage wildlife because it's connected to the habitat. And if we're not logging up north, now I'm speaking more for the Northeast right now, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, if we're not logging, our moose population suffers, our bear population suffers, our whitetail population suffers. All of this starts to have an impact. So you got to manage all these resources, collectively, for the economy, for the people, and for the wildlife. And that's why we have more bears now.
Yeah. No, and I like that you brought up the forestry management, because so often that part of our story gets overlooked. And I promised the audience we're going to get to Thompson Center, but Gregg's hitting on some great stuff here. And even here, like where we're at right now, if you went out and talked to any of your neighbors, I would bet if you had a 40,000 foot talk about forest management, I think most of them would recoil at the thought of tearing down the beautiful trees, trying to get across the point of an unmanaged forest is counterproductive to what they're looking at, to the creatures. I pulled up to your house and there's a bobcat in your backyard. I mean, holy smokes. Like when you take care of this stuff and you can get across the general public that, there's value in doing all this in a balance, it's good for everybody, even the non-consumptive passive user.
A lot of people don't realize. So there's another impact that's occurring right now. Okay. And we're not going to go down the whole political trail on this, but we have a redistribution of people in this country. And I'm talking native-born citizens when I say redistribution, meaning people from California going to Montana, going to Idaho, people from Connecticut or New York or Mass are coming to New Hampshire. And what happens is, obviously, culturally it changes things, right? Because they're leaving where they grew up. They're leaving, their original ideology or their understanding of how things work, and they go into other areas. So you take Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and then you bring people to the north, right? The big woods of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. They don't understand how this operates up here, how it manages, what it takes for the wildlife, right? And everybody enjoy it because we have so many great resources. I'm talking for hikers, bikers, kayakers, boaters. I'm not talking, right? But you come up here and you start carving out. So right next to, I know here I'm going with this example. So right next to me, Stratham Hill Park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know, I'm bringing it. You know where I'm going with this,
I
right?
do. Locals will understand.
Locals will understand, but this is just an idea. So Stratham Hill Park, 80 some acres, 80 acres,
give or take.
right? And in the past, everybody could enjoy the resource.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whether I wanted to bird watch, walk my dog, I wanted to go hunting, whatever that was, I could go over there and enjoy wildlife, right? Because it was a public park funded by public tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And unfortunately, an ideology came in that says we don't like people hunting. So zero instances of anybody getting shot,
Mm-hmm.
getting hurt, close calls. I'm talking zero.
Right.
Like now, were there a lot of cases of people being bit by a dog? Hundreds.
Yep.
Right. But the ideology came up here that says we don't like this certain group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up voting and we lost our rights. So we as taxpayers who had access to this park, unfortunately don't have access to it anymore.
Right.
For that activity. And we just got to watch that because it will trickle down to wildlife. Meaning I don't like, cutting trees down. But most people don't realize 80% of the Northeast was deforested.
Yeah.
Like if you ask my kids right now who grew up as hunters and wildlife stewards, right? They don't even know. They'll walk through the woods and go, Dad, how come there's a rock wall here? Right? We're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because 80% of the trees
right.
were cut down. But what happens is the regrowth was never managed.
Right.
It wasn't managed. So therefore, we don't have as many nut-bearing trees as we used to have. We don't have as many wild orchards as we used to have. So we have a lot more, pines and,
right.
and evergreen species of trees, which are not healthy for wildlife.
Right.
So that's where, so if we bring this kind of back to Thompson Center, that's Thompson Center's belief is we're for the sportsmen and for the wildlife and for the habitat management. We're a lifestyle company. Mm-hmm. We build really, really good firearms.
I agree.
But we build them for the people who want to be out in the field and to manage the wildlife and who care about it. And we're not doing this to make a buck, right? We're not a private equity company. We're not publicly held, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what drove me, because people ask me all the time, since April, why did you get back into it? Like, why did you choose at this point? Wildcom is doing great. You've got your television show. Mm-hmm. You got crawfish going down in Louisiana. It's like, you're a busy guy. Like, why did you want to put all your eggs into this basket and basically restart the brand? It is because I want to be the point of that spear. I had a hole in my heart when Thompson Center was sold and then moved to Springfield. Mm-hmm. Because that culture was abandoned. Like you remember, you are part of the culture, Fred.
Yeah.
You sold the product. You serviced the product. You talked to the consumer.
Yeah.
And that culture changed, but I don't want that culture to be lost in society. So I feel if I can help rebuild that culture, then we can start shifting back towards entrepreneurs, privately held companies, people who care about the sportsman. You have an issue with your gun, right? You contact us, we're going to fix it. We're going to take care of it like that. Those things are being lost today.
That guarantee and that accessibility was always huge. It was like another local company that's worldwide, LL Bean. Like you could go spend a few $500 on a pair of waders at LL Bean, and those are guaranteed for life. And then locally, I mean, they're pretty accessible. You go up to Freeport, it's open 24/7. And get taken care of. Or if you live somewhere else, just like you, send it in, warranty, repair, good, or we'll replace it. Like you said, that doesn't. If it does exist, it's very hard to extract from the owner or owners of that corporation in most places, and it's cumbersome for the customer, the end user.
Well, in today's world with social media, and connectivity, it's a double-edged sword. It's great because we can communicate with the end user, and they can communicate with us, but it makes everything you do really transparent. Mm-hmm. So if you ignore them, they know they're being ignored.
Mm-hmm.
But if you embrace it and create infrastructure and say, we care about what your opinion is, we want to answer. I mean, so, I spend 4 or 5 hours every weekend, going through all of the DMs and the messages. Like, that's a lot of time on a weekend to spend. And eventually we'll have bigger infrastructure to help that. But I want to know what people are saying now. I want to know what their concerns are, what they want to build. And I couldn't believe it, how many people want the Hawken to come back.
Yeah.
Traditional muzzleloaders. I'm like, I thought you guys all wanted like high tech stuff. So now it's already reshaping our product plan to say, okay, this is what we want to do. We put a YouTube short out, Flintlock versus modern muzzleloader.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to hit 1 million views here this week. What does that tell you? That tells you there's still that group of people, and I don't want to abandon those people because, they're the people that made the company. And then obviously, I got to bring young guys into the sport.
Yeah.
I need those 20-year-olds coming into the sport and into the company. Right. So as we're going through a hiring right now, I'm trying to layer in all these ages, right? Like I want these 20-year-old engineers right out of school coming in. We've been interviewing them here the last couple of weeks. And, are they coming in with a lot of experience? No. Right. As long as they're passionate and curious, they're going to do well.
I think it's interesting. You talk about trends and in muzzle loading, what's old is new, and what we thought was new is kind of getting swept under the rug. And you see this across archery, camo patterns. Everything for the last 10 years has been trending retro. Yeah. And I see that with my daughter. All of a sudden she's wearing early 90s garb, and thank God, because I think last summer it was mom jeans, and that sucker could die back in the 80s where it was. But I digress. Like, there's a value system with a younger demographic that there's a challenge in using a Hawken.
Yeah.
There's a challenge in using a recurve. I know there's some purist mindsets out there. I won't delve into that, but look, it's just that you do you kind of thing. If that's what lights your fire and you derive enjoyment from that experience of, not only taking a one-shot proposition in a muzzleloader, but you're going to go old school with a Hawken, and then, wear your dad's solids, and maybe it still smells like an oil and a Marlboro Red, and go kill deer. That's awesome. Good for you.
And it's really easy to take for granted, like how I grew up and what I was exposed to and what I did back then is different today. And like you say, things are coming back around, because one of the early podcasts I did, the Victory Lane podcast and the guys there, working with class bow hunter guys were there, and we had an old contender pistol I had brought out just to talk about the history of Thompson Center, and it was in 45 410. And so we're doing the podcast, and we had a bunch of other people in the cabin in Illinois, and Tyler Breen with Cartel Calls was there, and he's just kind of watching as the podcast ends. He goes, "Let me see that pistol." Right. And Tyler, he hunts in Northeast a lot, and he goes, "Oh my God." He said, "I'd love to go shoot a turkey with this." I'm like, "Well, why don't you?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "The shot shells are there."
Right.
And where I'm going with that story is, like, to me, how many grouse have been killed in the Northeast with a 45 410? Millions. Right. So it's normal for me to go shoot a bird with a handgun. Tyler had never experienced that. So I said, "Hey, take the gun." And he went out and shot a turkey. And then all of a sudden he shared that story with somebody who shared that story with somebody. So now we're going to go build a 410 turkey pistol.
Awesome.
And it's just because what I thought was normal to me, and like I knew that opportunity was there, there's a whole demographic that doesn't know, never experienced, never even thought it existed. I'm like, let them be the face of it.
Yeah.
I'll go build this for you, right? So you all turkey fanatics out there, you younger generation, you guys go have at it, because they just want the challenge.
Yeah.
Shooting it with a 12 gauge now at 90 yards or wherever people can shoot now with today's optics and loads, it's not as fun.
Right.
Right. It's that challenge. Traditional bows, like you said, same thing. And so instead of trying to go, how many guns can Thompson Center make? Right. Like, okay, can we, if we bring this bolt action, 6.5 Creedmoor, spiral twist barrel, blah, 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 blah. Can we sell 20,000 guns? So we sell 40,000 guns. It's finding those unique experiences for people and go build them a product for the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if we build 200, we build 200, right? If we build 2,000, we build 2,000. And if we hit a home run, we make 20,000. But we're not approaching it from how many can we make, as opposed to what products can we build to give people an experience so they're get out in the field and go do it.
I think what's special about this resurrection of this brand specifically is that, like you said, there was this culture. It wasn't even brand loyalty. It was a culture around the brand, especially here in the Northeast where it was homed, and people love seeing that Rochester, New Hampshire stamped on a barrel, right? But where it goes away for so long, I think people just got used to it being a thing. It was here. All the variants came out of all the different platforms. I think towards the end of the first run, it was the Venture, and then Triumph, the Bone Collector muzzleloader, and then all these different variants. And it was just there. People took it for granted, and then it went away. And I think over time, and you're finding out, you're living it. It created this demand that you took it away, not for this reason, but it's just by default it happened. Like, people were longing for this. Now they have it. Same thing with these something you take for granted with the 45 410. You and a generation of people that made sense to you, that was part of your culture, but because of the information sharing that lacked back then, and everything's at your fingertips now, again, it's this, holy smokes, this is something I can go do. I would love to try this challenge. And now that story is out there within a half an hour all across the globe. It's pretty wild.
It is. So, as you know, we started a YouTube when Thompson Center was being rebirthed, as you will, to document the process and showcase the products and what have you. And because that marries well with social media.
Sure.
Right? Because the social is today, and then the YouTube becomes a little bit more in depth on things. And what was interesting was, so as we started to put a few of these YouTubes out, the reaction from the public, and what I mean by this is a super important point, and we see it because of social media being transparent, is how many people had a Thompson Center in the gun safe, in the cupboard, in the closet, forgotten about, unused, dusty. And because of the rebirth, because of the attention, because they connect back to that original culture, they're using it again.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine, he just took his, I think she's 12, took his daughter out to Iowa for the youth season, and she shot this beautiful 10-pointer, 140-inch 10-pointer with the Alcor muzzleloader. And he did that because he had forgotten, he's always taking his daughter hunting, but he had forgot he had the gun. He's watching Thompson Center. He goes, oh my God, they're back.
Yeah.
He takes the gun out of the cabinet. She shoots this deer. And now we have people pulling out their contenders, going to the range and shooting again because we can see it on social. That wouldn't have happened if Thompson Center didn't relaunch. It would have just sat, forgotten about, stale, ended up at a gun show or sold to a gun shop someday.
Right.
And so we created this value in the experience again. And I be honest with you, I need to do another YouTube on what I've learned from buying a gun company. Because that's something I learned, is the power of the history of the brand, power of the culture, not just the product. You could take anybody's muzzle and kill a deer, but they wanted to do it with a TC.
Right. We're talking at this point, almost 18 years since that first iteration of your ownership went away. It's a whole generation of people. You had literally kids getting born that are now or going to graduate high school that are going to come into a consumer age where they can make their own money and buy their own products. And like you said, if dad or granddad kept this stuff in the safe and they weren't exposed to it, that culture wasn't there. This is all new to them. And now with all this information at their fingertips, you're literally creating a new generation, a new culture of this generation that's coming into their own, which it's all new to them. We sit back and kind of like, we've known it's been here the whole time, but anyway.
But you make a really good point. I mean, and so if you sit back, especially, being my age, right? So my youngest daughter, Savannah, she just turned 18. So to your point, to put it in real life experiences for me, right, is so she was born in 06. The company was sold in 07. So she's an infant.
Crazy.
Right? And now she's at the University of North Georgia in the Army. But during that span, Thompson Center went dark.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, she had some exposure to it just through me, but she didn't have cultural exposure, like from the marketplace, and the brand and connectivity with other people and going into gun shops, right? So she grew up on the new fad with, ARs and repeaters and other crossbows and things like that. But it's interesting, and we're just blessed on this, the timing on the trends. Yeah. You're 100% correct on trends. I believe, in looking at the gun business now intimately for 6 months, I mean, I've lived it, but until you really dig into the brands, the AR craze is waning. And what I mean by that is it's been mutated, convoluted, accessorized, like what could be done has been done and done really well by a lot of companies. So it's not as interesting now. So in the crossbow world now has been popular. The seasons are established, what have you. So now all of a sudden, muzzleloading, single shot rifles, lever guns, right? And things like that are making a rebirth. I mean, look at how popular the lever guns are. Yeah. So we're catching this trend at the time we're bringing back the old culture at the time when people want the old culture. Right. And that's a blessing. If we had done it 5 or 6 years ago, I think it would have been different.
Yeah, probably so.
But now we got to put our own twist on it. But it's a balancing act, and bringing products out. How do you market them? How do you distribute them? And
So all right, so let's talk about that. What does that look like? Because I think we've done a real good job of looking at the past and romanticizing what was and what's coming, which is fun to do. But I mean, what can the audience, what can the consumers look at right now? If you know what Thompson Center was, and you understand a lot of the platforms and what made them special, what inventory can people see now and what's coming?
So I'll answer that in 2 ways. Okay. One is from a historical perspective of what we're going to relaunch now that services the demand out there, and then introduces this next generation to who Thompson Center was. So we're going to launch the Encore rifle and muzzleloader platform in November. We will be shipping in November. We're cutting ships already. We've already built pre-production that I've gone and I've tested and I've shot. So, which is exciting. It's crazy to think the recipe was already there, right? We made hundreds of thousands of them, but when you don't have equipment, you don't have tooling, you don't have processes, and to relaunch all of that in Rochester, right? We didn't do it in Springfield to create an inventory and then move everything, right? It's literally from the ground up, and you take for granted when a company's running and it evolved, because Thompson Center will be 60 years old next year. So this spent 45 years in Rochester. So over 45 years, you're creating systems and processes and infrastructure and knowledge and all of that created the product. Well, you got to go recreate it. Like if you ask Steve Jobs to go recreate the iPhone, he'd be like,
And I suspect, and I'm going to interrupt, but I don't mean to, but it's a point I want to make. Like when you're doing that, there are certain off the record, off the book techniques and just things you figure out that you can't replicate. You have to figure that out as you're going through those iterations. So if you don't have those written down somewhere, those little tips, techniques of the trade, if you will, I got to imagine that's super challenging.
I will 100%. Well, I'll make 2 comments, but they're both the same comment. First of all, nobody has ever copied the Encore. The reason is they don't know how. So if we didn't purchase Thompson Center back, and I say we as a team, so I've got my No, Carl Ricker, my director of engineering, and other engineers and designers, and my operations manager, Tyler Stone, who built them, the Encore never be produced. Ever. Because if Ruger or Savage, I'm just picking names, right, or CZ or any of these big companies bought Thompson Center, they would buy the brand name and come out with a whole new product.
Sure.
Because to your point, you can look at a print all day long. That doesn't tell you how.
Mm-hmm.
It just tells you what. And literally the Encore would never come back out. Because
that's crazy to think about.
Because how you do it, now you could reverse engineer and figure it out, but they wouldn't take the time to go figure it out. They go, let's just build something new.
Sure.
Because every single barrel ever made from 1967, every single frame ever made from 1967 has to interchange. So who would take on that responsibility to say, okay, here's a new Encore. Was it going to fit my barrel from 1997? Okay, here's a new Contender barrel. Is it going to fit my frame from 67?
Yeah.
They'd be like, because they don't know. They don't have the tribal knowledge.
Right.
And every gun company, right? Ruger has their tribal knowledge. Smith has their tribal knowledge. Browning has their tribal knowledge, right? And ours was unique. So that's a legacy that will continue. So we won't have a gap.
Mm-hmm.
So that 60-year heritage gets attached to us. Like, that's pretty important.
Continue on that line of thought with rebuilding and starting from scratch. Imagine some of that infrastructure was still there and reestablishing roots in New Hampshire. Are you currently rolling here in New Hampshire right now?
So we're in Rochester.
Okay.
So we're operating in conjunction with Thompson Investment Casting. So when Thompson Center, and the older people know the story. The younger people watch them, be new to them. So KW Thompson Tool came to Rochester in the 50s. Okay, from Brooklyn, New York. They relocated up here. They worked with the state. The state gave them a killer piece of property, Route 16 to Route 11, which is now a car dealership, by the way. Remember, back in the 50s, it was all woods. It was like there was nobody lived north of the bridge. There wasn't a Dover, Somersworth, Rochester, right? Rochester is the third largest city now.
Yeah.
Third only to Concord and Manchester on the west side, right? Which serve as Boston, essentially. And then in 65, obviously, Warren Center paired up with Ken Thompson, and we got Thompson Center arms. So you have that installed base of people, because at our peak, we had 600 people working for us. And a lot of those people went to SIG, by the way. But when Tyler had to move, his director of operations, move everything to Springfield, he purchased the foundry from Smith & Wesson. He moved it 4 or 5 miles into a better facility, modernized everything, continued to make parts for Smith & Wesson, as well as other gun companies, a lot of gun companies. And so when we said, okay, if we acquire Thompson Center, like Tyler, I need you and your expertise and your infrastructure. And you're in Rochester. You have a lot of old TC people working for you. You understand all this. And then Carl's coming over from engineering. So we put the band back together in the same area. So now that tribal knowledge, we can now recruit that to come back in on the relaunch, because they know how products were made, how we made them. And I've got to be honest with you, Fred, I've got like a 10-year window. And what I mean by that is 10 years to bring in the new group of people to teach them the culture, right? Because everybody's getting older. And I want them to experience what TC used to be, right? Because it was a fun place to work. Everybody shot, everybody hunted, everybody cared about everybody's family. And so I'm taking it very seriously and bringing this young group in to teach them what it was. But the only way you're going to do that's in Rochester.
Yep.
That's the DNA. And so Encores are going to roll out first. Rifles, muzzleloaders, and stainless steel. Are we going to do some upgrades? Yeah, things changed in 15, 18 years.
Yeah.
Suppressors.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a consideration back then. So I'll put another thing in context to you, because I saw this on, the products that build America. And on the History Channel. So in January of 2007, I'm pretty sure I've got all my dates right. So Smith & Wesson acquires Thompson Center, right? June of 2007, the iPhone comes out.
Mm. Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So so there was no TikTok, there was no Instagram, there was no Meta, there was no iPhone.
Yeah.
When Smith & Wesson purchased it.
Yeah.
So now look from a technology and communication standpoint. So you all of a sudden, if I told my kids, hey, listen, TC was sold before the iPhone came out, they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What was that in the 1800s? No, that was 2007. So that's how much the marketplace has changed. So we have a lot of catch up to do, and but that's the fun part. So we'll have rifles, muzzleloaders of stainless steel coming out, but then we're gonna roll. Then the Contender comes out, the G2 version, not the first version.
It will still be considered G2, or is
still be the G2. Obviously, all the barrels are interchanged. Your frames will all take any barrels ever made, or if we make Contender barrels, will fit the original frames.
Okay.
From 67 on, and and they're kind of like big brother, little brother. So like from a tooling, getting things up and going. So we're going to launch one gun line, the Encore, then we'll launch the next gun line, because there's a lot to do in this. It's just not making a part. People think, well, you got to print, you make stuff. Well, that's the ingredients. You have ingredients, you got a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And the recipe gets complicated because you have routings, right? So where all the parts come from and how they come together magically at the right time. Right? You're missing one screw, one spring, you can't make a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have work instructions, which tell you how to put everything together. Then you have control plans to make sure everything works, right? And everything hits your spec, and the quality control. We got the 10 commandments at the end of the line to make sure everything goes out the way we want it to, because it's kind of a lifetime warranty.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those recipes have to be dusted off, reconfigured, and launched. So it takes a lot to do that. But then after that, it'll get easier, right? Because we're in the flow. Then the Icon, the bolt action rifle, came out in 2007, will come out. And then the Triumph, you mentioned the Bone Collector is one variant of the Triumph.
Right.
So 4 platforms in 12 months.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. But that's the commitment to the brand. What I'm not sharing is all the new product.
Sure, that's fine.
Because there are variations of new products coming. Now, the new barrels that come out, they're going to be threaded for a suppressor.
Yeah, talk about that.
And
that's a pretty big deal.
It is. So for whatever reason, Smith had a recipe and didn't evolve the recipe. So in 2007, when we launched the Icon, we spent years researching. So this is prior to the PRS world, right? The precision rifle and the NMLRA, shoots that go on. So there wasn't long range hunting, there wasn't long range shooting. There was a handful of custom gunsmiths that were into long range in these sniper competitions, and eventually became a formalized sport. When we were working with the various custom gunsmiths, Jordan Gardner being one who's kind of godfather of the PRS world. He's the one who worked with Hornady on the PRC cartridge.
Okay.
6.5 PRC, 7 PRC, 300 PRC. He worked in collaboration with them on that cartridge. We got introduced to 5R rifling. Okay, so typical rifling, is 90 degrees. You got a land, and you got a groove, right? And you got this kind of right angle that occurred. Well, 5R, meaning radius, it had the corner basically cut off. So you had less fouling inside your gun. You had greater accuracy. Now it's a standard. So it was a custom configuration only a handful of people knew about. Thompson Center was like, wow, this makes a difference. Let's put it in the Icon.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because we were the first production company to launch that. And now it's common, right? And but it was never put into the Encore line or the Contender line.
Why?
So I don't know. I think Smith was just told up, right? And instead of reinvesting in new tooling to go
Sure.
put 5R into an Encores and Contender. They just kept it on the Icon.
Okay.
And then, the Venture, the Compass came out. So they kept it on the bolt gun. So we're going to go take that technology, bring it back, with the threaded barrel. So the new Encore barrels coming out are going to be different. And also how we approach the manufacturing without getting deep in the weeds, but how we're chambering, how we're locating off the lugs, certain things that we do now from a technology standpoint you couldn't do 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have the equipment, right? That, so we, having a blank slate's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of companies are like, well, we got to do it this way because we own this equipment, or we've always done it this way, so you don't evolve. We're like, okay, knowing what we know now, and this is where Smith did help because they had a lot of technology. And so we look at all this and go, it really needs to be done this way. Okay, we can do it that way because we don't have another way.
Your the ability to come out with these barrels that will accept silencers is, talk about your timing again. You're hitting at peak. Things have gotten so much more streamlined when it comes to processing Form 4s, and people are getting
Weeks now.
Yeah, days.
Yeah.
I was just down for our banquet. I took a meeting at NSSF headquarters, and we were doing, our Federal Relations Director, Taylor Smits, was testifying on the tax stamp bill, as it's commonly known, the reallocation potential of putting almost $200 million into conservation by taking 80% of that $200 on that tax stamp and allocating it to PR, which is fantastic. So all that to say, through that conversation, I learned, I didn't know they were coming back in rapid time. You used to, during COVID when I was at SIG, these things I'd come in, buy a QD for 9mm, and then thing would sit on the shelf for 10 months, and guy come back in, literally knock the dust off. Yeah, here's your silencer. So anyway, you guys are hitting it again at the right time.
And what's great about the interchangeable system is now people can experiment with different calibers.
Yeah.
That's really what made the Contender super popular back in the day, were all the wildcatters. So I will give the SSKs and the E. Arthur Browns and the Bullberries, and I can go down the list of all these, custom guys that helped popularize TC, because they were, they could take a handgun or a rifle, and they can go make a custom barrel. They can do a wildcat chambering in it. Or if they wanted to thread it for a suppressor, you just find a barrel.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fun to where people can still tinker on things. So people who already have an Encore right now, right? Let's say it's in muzzleloaders. We sold hundreds of thousands of them, right? I don't know. There's over 500,000 marketplace today.
Golly days.
A guy could literally dust it out of his cabinet and say, I want a 6.5 Creedmoor. I think that'd be cool with a 20-inch barrel. I'm going to put a suppressor.
Mm.
And next year they're going to be able to buy it.
That's cool.
A barrel. They don't have to go buy another gun. Right. They don't have to go, fill out another form. And if there's a waiting period because they live in Maine or whatever. Yeah. Right. So that's the fun part is now people, it's a modular system.
The legacy continues.
And the legacy continues. And we'll have new cartridges because I mentioned earlier the straight wall. So 350 Legend, 400 Legend, 360 Buck Hammer, all these new straight walls that are coming out. Whether people are hunting in the Northwoods with them because it's a great carry gun, or whether they're hunting in the Midwest because they don't have a slug gun, go buy a barrel.
Yeah.
Convert your muzzleloader or buy complete new guns. So all that'll come out. I'll tease your listeners here that we are testing carbon fiber barrels.
Interesting.
So handgun, rifle, muzzleloader.
It's intriguing.
It is, because so the Encore doesn't have an action on it, as you know. So meaning it's not like a bolt action, lever action, semi-automatic action. So you're already bringing the platform down by 4, 5, 6 inches, right? Because you don't have a receiver. The barrel really just hits the bushing for the firing pin. So you can run a longer barrel on an Encore without running a longer platform. And then you put carbon fiber on that and you take the weight out and you thread it for a suppressor, right? Or muzzle brake. So there's some cool technology that's coming. It's just going to, and again, you accessorize what you already own.
Right.
So there's a lot of handles for razors out there.
Yeah.
Razor blades.
That's right.
But then beyond 25, so that gives you into 25. Beyond 25, there are new platforms coming out. So are we going to bring back the Hawken? Absolutely. But there are like complete brand new platforms that we've never made that you're going to start seeing in 2026.
So let's bring up to speed rather, and kind of speed up because I don't want to take up a ton of your time. I know you're busy. Firestick technology. Looking at muzzleloaders, what can the consuming audience expect, and how's that?
So your timing of your question couldn't be better because we literally had a design meeting on this yesterday. So we're working with Federal, and we licensed the technology. When I say technology, the process from Traditions on how to connect a barrel extension with the barrel. How they originally designed it, and I say they meaning Traditions and Federal, was they work collectively, right? They are the people who brought Firestick to the marketplace, 100%. And so I got with Tom Hall, great friend of mine, phenomenal company. I've shot their products for years. That's how I got introduced to Firestick. So we'll be shooting prototypes this fall, and they're not going to be for sale this fall, just by the time we get everything retooled. But by the spring of next year, Firestick will be out there. And for those people who are not familiar with it, they really need to look at it, because this is a great bridge to go from a modern gun into a muzzleloader without the whole complication of measuring my powder, right? Carrying my powder, like all the other little nuances that go, especially for either inexperienced people or younger people who, okay, do I use 100 grains, 120 grains? And then, how far do I push my bullet down? Do I swab between shots? Having this, Firestick or capsule, right, that you put a primer in. So obviously a bullet, you still load down the barrel and there's a shelf and it hits the shelf. But from a safety standpoint, like I know with my kids are very good on gun safety, but mistakes happen. Yeah. Right. The gun stays loaded. Right. How many times have you seen this?
Oh man.
Right. That there's powder and a bullet in there and a guy grabs it off the shelf because it's been sitting there. He didn't know his buddy had it. And they go load another charge on top of it. And we've seen it happen all the time. So now you don't have to worry about that. At the end of the day, you pull the capsule, Firestick out of the gun, there's no powder in it. You just have a bullet. So from a safety and convenience standpoint to get people into the sport, I really hope that the handful of states that haven't looked at this start looking and understanding it's right for the sport to get people into it and to keep people safe and effective. And you don't have a breech plug to clean. Yeah. From a maintenance standpoint.
Well, I will say, and tip the cap to you and your engineers, that when you guys came out with the speed breech, that was a drastic improvement. I mean, I still like it. I moved on to the Strike.
Yeah.
That locally people will know it, and its initial iteration was the LHR.
Right. That
went to Smith and was rebranded as the Thompson Center Strike, which I friggin' love. But that breech system was neat.
Well, yeah, right, because now the threads are on the outside of the barrel with the adapt system. Yeah. So now it was just a clean barrel. But what we're going to see on the muzzle loading is you always have to have that point of entry into anything.
Right.
Any sport, any activity. So it's like if you're a gun hunter and say, I want to get into archery, a lot of guys, they start with crossbow. Then they understand how an arrow flies, how a broadhead works. They get excited about killing an animal. Then they go to vertical bow.
Sure.
The data is there.
Yeah.
Right. That all of the crossbow, I call crossbows crossover sport. Is these crossover gun guys to bow guys, or bow hunters that are, 60, 70 years old, have an injury or whatever. Like, I don't want to give the sport up. I don't want to give bow hunting up. And then they kind of go back the other way. So they go to crossbow. Well, here, the Firestick's going to do the same way. Is once they get used to it, then they can be like, oh, I'd have a custom one.
Yeah.
Right? Because because the only limitation to the Firestick is you got 80, 100, 120 grain loads. And for the average guy shooting 100 yards, 150 yards, where the accuracy is good. And in some cases, it's spectacular.
It is spectacular.
Right. Because it is loaded like a cartridge, meaning the powder is weighed.
Mm-hmm.
So the consistency, charge to charge to charge to charge. I can run across my zero chronograph and blow your mind. The standard deviation is so small. But if your gun likes it, it loves it.
Mm-hmm.
But some guns want an extra 10 grains here, less than 10 grains. I want to experiment on different primers and how the primer ignites the powders and playing with different powders. Well, fine. Go buy another barrel for your gun and run whatever powder you want. So I think you're going to see more people coming back into muzzle loading or experimenting because of ours.
Yeah, and that's great. And we're always, R3's been the buzz kid for the last half dozen years or so, maybe even a little bit longer. But really right now, that's the thing. And a big part of that formula is creating access. And, muzzle loading being something that on the face of it is primitive, but when you just detailed, you get in the minutia of it. Hell, I can remember, and not to put this on your shoulders, but 20-year-old probably videos of you at game trails.
Yep.
And I forget the fella's name, but he always acted like kind of the goober.
Yeah.
You guys would go out there and you'd go through and show the whole tutorial and the process of pouring loose powder, and you had your measure. And it's like, if you're just trying to get into it, you look at that video, you're like, holy smokes, do I know what I'm doing? And it can be intimidating. So again, a crossover device or an introductory device like this that is consistent, that allows for ethical, clean shots, which is ultimately what we're looking for. The standardization across it takes out that intimidation factor for a new hunter, new muzzleloader consumer, whether they're an older person or a young kid coming of age. That's a pretty big deal. And to put this out to the audience, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, the Four Corner states, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Mississippi, and then Connecticut currently do not allow, and Alaska. Again, I understand Idaho has some pretty crazy rule. I didn't know this.
So, yeah, super restricted.
Yeah.
You got to use a percussion cap, exposed to the elements, no optics.
Yeah. So those states, we got some work to do in legislatively in introducing that. States that are considering it, or
especially Texas, that's a laugh.
That's crazy,
right? Because here I can use a suppressed rifle, right? I can use a 338 lapel, right? I can do some crazy, gun configurations in Texas. So I think that one will go. Mississippi is another one. They were an early adopter to straight wool cartridges, so I think that'll fall in our favor. The Western states, there are some people sitting on the legislative bodies that have specific interest. New Mexico just took optics away, right? Which for muzzleloaders,
mm-hmm.
talking about. I understand why they did it, because the muzzleloaders today, they in their right hands can shoot. I was testing some new muzzleloaders out to 500 yards.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
And with the right optics, obviously running a turret system, custom dial system, and understanding the wind, running applications like Hornady's Forward Off, right? So, you can effectively kill out to 500 yards with a muzzleloader. But it's a single shot, and there's a lot of things that go in. So the day I was shooting, we had an 8-mile-an-hour full value crosswind.
Mm.
Normal day, right? 50 inches of wind drift. Oof, 50. Now, through technology, right, reading the environment, having a Kestrel, understanding that, turning into it. So, okay, I put all the environments into my Forward Off and says, okay, I need 9.73 mil MOA adjustment. Fine. I give it, 9.5 clicks, and poof,
Right on.
I'm sitting there shooting 6-inch groups at 500 yards,
Wow.
which is amazing. So I understand why some states do that. Oregon thing with ignition and all that, I think, come on, make it safe for people.
Yeah.
But you're right. We're down to a handful of states.
Yeah. And I will say, though, that is from end of March of this year. So that's pretty current. I don't think anything's changed since that. But anyway, got some work to do, and I think there's some easy wins there to be had. Notch those up, and it should be a pretty easy sell based on just this conversation. And I would invite the listening audience, if you know your legislators, if you have policymakers in your circles, play them this part of the podcast. This is what it exists to do, is to perpetually teach and educate and provide a resource.
Well, the biggest thing people need to understand is you gotta.
Yeah.
How many times have we sitting back and we talk amongst ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't this change? Why doesn't that change? Well, it doesn't change when you didn't make a change. You didn't go vote. You didn't contact your legislators. You didn't try to advance an agenda. And that's the whole reason we lost Strata Mill Park.
Yeah.
Why? Because the hunters all sat and crammed amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And did they go and actually go to the meetings, raise their hand and go, this is a...
Someone else will do it for me has been the cliche default to our crowd.
Exactly. But there's so many things that still can be done with firearms. And the ammunition companies are getting so good at, creating new powders, new bullets, and loading techniques. And so I think you're going to see, guns continue to become more specialized. And I think that's fantastic, because everyone wants their own unique experience,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's super primitive and super hard, or whether it's high tech and super cool, and anywhere in between. And I think my job at TC is to recognize those trends, right? Because the consumer's going to tell you, we want this. And then, so our philosophy of the new TC, let's see if I can say this correctly. We want to build guns that people want to buy. We don't want to build guns and tell people what they should purchase.
That's great.
Pretty simple, right? So if you want to go buy a 410 turkey pistol, I want to make you one. I don't want to go build something and tell you this is what you have to buy.
And force feed it to it.
And force feed it, because it's just communicating with the people. They'll tell you, and trends change. And boy, you got to be fast,
especially now, because it's like the news cycle. Something that happens at 9:00 in the morning is 3 days ago, come 9:00 tonight.
Yeah.
I would imagine, kind of an extreme way to put it, but same thing here. Right. What's happening Q1, Q2 is not going to be the same Q1, Q2 next year.
Right. For sure. So many reasons, right? Because we have external factors, we have internal factors, we have, personality changes, and every user group now is different. The 20 to 30-year-olds, they kind of want, their product their way. And then, your age group wants it theirs. And, whatever, the 50 or 60-year-olds, they want some more traditional. Like I see wood stocks coming back.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that retro traditional, nice checkering. So, okay. So we go do that. But so that's why we're trying to build a very highly flexible, adaptable company that just listens and does it and will support you. And hey, if we hit a couple home runs and we can make 20,000 a one unit, great. Are you going to go to Walmart and find a gun?
No. Which is fine.
Right. In the past, and really through the Smith & Wesson years, and I understand their strategy. Their strategy was good, better, best. Right. So they had things that you could find at Walmart, and then they had things you could find at Kittery Trading Post, right? A really high-end, great retailer, right? We're just going to go, we're not going to do the good. We're just going to do better, best.
Yeah.
So when we bring a bolt, we'll have 2 bolt platforms. We're going to have better, best. Icon being best, and then we'll probably bring out a venture type gun that from a feature set will be in the best value. 100% be the best value. I can already tell you that because I already have it, mapped out. Will be for the dollar. There'll be nothing that has a feature set of, what will come after the Icon. Will the Icon be the absolute best for the price point? Oh yeah, there should be some custom bolt guys there that are going, oh boy, I'm not going to get $3,000 or $4,000 for my guns anymore. But that's the mindset: is give somebody the best value, and the best experience. That's it. It's not any more complicated.
Now, certainly looking forward to it. Everything that's coming, everything that will be here on short order. And, I have, knowing you, I have no doubt it's going to be a success. And then knowing people in the public, I had a friend of mine from years ago. He said, Fred, he's a Southern guy, so I'll probably do this terribly. He's like, man, you know Gregg Ritz? I said, uh-huh. He said, man, that man made muzzleloader hunting sexy. I said, yeah, I can see that. So stand by. Gregg Ritz going to make muzzleloader hunting sexy again. 2024, 2025.
And we're gonna have fun, and we're gonna take people on the journey. And I want people to see the behind the scenes.
Yeah,
because I want younger people to be inspired. I want, and not just inspired to hunt or shoot. I'm inspired to run companies, to be part of a culture, to be part of something bigger than themselves. And that's the legacy I want to leave. I'm kind of hitting this stage in my life, right? I've got a lot of runway left. Somebody asked me, like, how long are you going to stay with TC? I said, 18 years. And they go, that's a weird number. 18 years. Well, I guess it's really less now. It's 16 years. And they go, where did you pick that number? I said, so I just went through and with Hornady's 75th anniversary. Okay. And as everybody knows, Jason Hornady is a great friend of mine. So I got a chance to go to their event in Grand Island and see what they built over 3 generations, meaning Joyce, Steve, and Jason. And I was moved by that. So now when people say, how long are you going to stay? I said, at least 16 years. I go, why? I said, because I want to be there for the 75th anniversary. Right? If I can get all of this moving and be there, say, TC hit 75, and now it's a dominant player in the space and created all these great memories for people, then I left my legacy. So that's my personal goal.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And it's I think as all of us mature in this life, and especially in this space, you can go back and look at someone's career for 20, 30 years and see, where they started, what motivated them, and then getting to this place now of where you're coming to and understanding the value and in that legacy, and not being this put on thing, like I'm just doing this because it's the right thing to say. No, but meaning it and living it and delivering on that because of where our community is at on the human timeline. Hunters specifically, not so much rec shooters, but hunters specifically, we're not in a good place. And creating that opportunity and that passion, that motivation, and infecting in a great way a new generation. We need more people like that, and more people to empower new business owners, new startups, and people to take that and have the confidence to run with it. Say, you can do this too. And gosh, with the technology and all the information sharing that's available, people didn't share information 25, 30 years ago. It was all here. I mean, we talk about that in your space, talk about that with trappers. Trappers weren't sharing this information. Now, like, you are all biologically timing out.
Right.
Trapping will not, if they don't share this information. Taxidermy, same thing. If you don't share this information, that art goes away. All this beautiful stuff behind you doesn't happen. Same thing here. So good on you for doing it. And again, congratulations, all the best. And we know great things are coming from you and Thompson Center and your whole team. So fantastic.
Looking forward. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
And let's plan, another one of these in 6 months, because once we're shipping product, love to kind of take you through the process.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And show people that, and then just continue to keep pushing the message forward, right? We got to stand up for our rights. And fortunately, we have great organizations like CSF that is out there every day on the front line. We just got to make sure we got your back.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and definitely need it. And hopefully in 6 months, we have a couple more of those states checked off for Firestick technology. Gregg Ritz, there he is, everybody. Thanks so much, sir. Appreciate you. Thanks again to Gregg, especially for having us into his home. I'm lucky he doesn't live too far away from where I'm at. But, oh, man, it's always good to see him, a leader for so many years in the space. He's been at it for a long time, and his advocacy, his messaging, and as you heard, where he's going with the second time around with Thompson Center, the opportunities creating for his employees, philosophy. There is it's great. You don't get to hear too much of that from too many people nowadays. It's seems to be a turn and burn lifestyle or business model for some folks. But yeah, nevertheless, you heard it from the man there. It's exciting to be able to engage on the Firestick technology. Obviously, we're doing that here at our level and working with those state legislative sportsmen's caucuses where we can, getting those laws updated to allow and create access, additional access for those technologies. Just like with TSS and turkey hunting. At first, it was not looked upon by traditionalists in a good light, but opportunity to create access for more people, to create different experiences of field. Obviously, an opportunity to create funding and that American system of conservation funding with additional materials, additional loads, all that contributes. And same thing here. I hope you enjoyed that one. Maybe you're so inspired to go out and pick up muzzleloading. If you've never done it, it is a ton of fun, and the technology, it's great. And as we said, in these areas where you have a lot of urban sprawl, a lot of population, probably can't use a rifle. Modern muzzleloading inlines where you can use them in that season do provide for rifle distance and accuracy in a one-shot proposition. Again, which I've said for years is always the idea anyway. And not to brag, but the last year, and you don't get too many of these opportunities where I live, but I was able to harvest a beautiful whitetail at 200 yards flat with my Thompson Center muzzle loader. That was a pretty impressive shot. But I knew the performance, I knew the equipment, I knew it had the ability to do that, which is why I took the opportunity that was presented to me. So anyway, it's out there and highly recommend it. A lot of fun, when that powder goes off and that big plume of smoke hangs in the air in front of you. There's always that second adrenaline. And if you've worked with your gear, you're probably 99% sure you. Anyway, again, thanks again to Greg. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We're in the home stretch here of the year, so continue success of field. Be safe out there. Know your equipment. Regular roundup next Wednesday. No feature for the off week. We return in a couple weeks, and we will bring you our wine, wheels, and wildlife recap from Childress Vineyards. Touched on it in a couple of Sportsman's Voice roundups a couple weeks ago. Look forward to bringing you some sound bites from a lot of conservation sporting community familiars, and just recap the event. It was a heck of an event, always is, and get to share some of the sights and sounds with you. More of the sounds anyway. But check out the socials, maybe some. And then we're getting to the end of the year, folks. Again, every other Thursday, we're bringing you these features. We're going to do a Thanksgiving theme, so look forward to that. Again, not everything's super wonky here. We try to bring you a little lifestyle stuff. So I'm going to bring a couple chef friends to the show. You can look forward to that. And then soon thereafter, we will already have been to Baton Rouge and back. So we'll have a NAS Summit recap, and then we'll end out the year just before Christmas with maybe a hit list of what you should probably put under the tree or in the stocking for the sportsman or woman in your life. More on that episode to come, but that's it. There's 4 episodes left in this year, and I'll tell you, 2025 is shaping up to be a whole lot of fun with more feature episodes already on the calendar that we're planning for you. Obviously, post-election, we'll have some thoughts. So, got a lot of good A lot of good stuff to come. Thanks, as always, for bringing us along part of your day, your weekend, wherever you're at. You're listening to us in segments. That's cool. A couple minutes heading to the deer stand, a couple minutes coming home from the pheasant fields, wherever it is. Some of that late freshwater trout fishing, offshore fishing, wherever you're at. Thank you for this continued support and bringing us along. We continue to see this program in notable charts in a positive direction. We continue to get good feedback. So that is all because of you guys. Thank you for tuning in and sharing this as you see fit. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We will see you next week for the roundup. Until then, be good. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.